Let's bring in New York Congressman John Katko, the top Republican on the House Homeland Security Committee. Thank you so much for your time, Congressman.
Thanks for having me here. I'm glad to be here.
So we'll get to the pipeline hack in just a moment, but first I would like to ask you about the vote to remove Liz Cheney from her leadership post today. I know the vote was behind closed doors for a reason. There are even some reports that Cheney was booed. But curious if you would consider sharing how you voted, and also why do you think the majority felt that it was necessary ultimately to remove her from her post?
Well, there really wasn't a vote. It was by acclamation, and it was just something that many in my party felt they had to do, and we're moving forward now, and now we've got to find a replacement for her, and I'm looking forward to supporting Liz Stefanik. I think she'll be a great spokesperson, and I thank Liz for her time as a conference chair, and going forward, we're just going to do the best we can to move forward.
And lastly, as I'm sure you heard, Cheney said, we must speak the truth. Our election was not stolen. Representative Liz Stefanik, who is the leading contender to replace her, was among the 147 Republicans who voted, as you know, to overturn the results of the election on January 6th. And she has subsequently cast doubt on the votes in Arizona, Georgia, and Michigan. I should add, numerous court cases and Trump's own Department of Justice concluded there was no widespread fraud in the election. Can you support someone going forward for Cheney's post who still believes that there were irregularities in the election despite no evidence?
Look, she maintains, and I think most of us, if not all of us, maintain that President Biden is a legitimately elected president, and it's time to move forward. And don't forget, every party has divergent views. The question is whether we can message things in a coherent fashion going forward, and I'm very confident that Elise can do that.
And you are, of course, leading negotiations with the chair of the Homeland Security Committee, Benny Thompson, for the bipartisan January 6th Commission. Today in the House, some of your colleagues spoke about January 6th. Let's take a listen.
There was no insurrection, and to call it an insurrection, in my opinion, is a bold-faced lie. Watching the TV footage of those who entered the Capitol and walked through Statuary Hall showed people in an orderly fashion staying between the stanchions and ropes, taking videos and pictures.
And certainly, I don't have to even remind you, Capitol police officers lost their lives that day. Feces was smeared on the walls, offices vandalized. Your response to your colleagues' comments?
Well, my record on this issue speaks for itself. And, again, we're going to move forward. And I think this commission is really important because what we need to do is make sure that whatever happens with this commission bill, that we find out how to make the Capitol more secure and how to make the Capitol police officers a better force. 92% of the Capitol police officers do not have faith in the leadership of the Capitol Hill Police. And there's a lot of security failures that happened that day that allowed this to happen.
And speaking of things that we don't want to happen again, I want to turn now to the pipeline hack. You're, of course, the ranking member on the House Homeland Security Committee and have said that cybersecurity is no longer just an issue, but it's a threat with real-world impacts. We've seen rare agreement here from Democrats and Republicans on this. How can you and your colleagues turn that into action to give the private sector the tools that they need to prevent this from happening again?
Well, that's exactly what we need to do. We need to take a look at this Colonial Pipeline attack and see that this is one in a long line of ransomware attacks that have faced our country. We've had attacks in hospitals and in schools, and now they're going to critical infrastructure. And I think this is a major shot across the bow to tell us as a country to wake up to the fact that cybersecurity is the preeminent threat to our national security right now in this country. And I'm honored to be head of the Homeland Security Committee for Republicans in leading that charge. And you look at the Colonial Pipeline situation itself, the company was attacked, not the pipeline itself, but the company shut down the pipeline to make sure that the attack didn't bleed into the critical infrastructure. But going forward, we need to do a stem-to-stern reevaluation and a reprioritization of securing the critical infrastructure, not just from physical attacks, but from these cyber attacks, which it's such an important thing to do. And I introduced a bill last week or a few weeks ago to deal with just that issue.
And of course, you just called this the shot across the bow. Would you say that all things considered, this ransomware attack, of course, it did not have life or death consequences, but do you feel like this was the wake-up call that will prompt the necessary change going forward?
But now that they're standing in gas lines and people are acting somewhat irrationally with fears that there's not going to be fuel going forward, now they're starting to understand. And now they're starting to understand that we got to pay better attention. And I've had a lot of conversations with my colleagues on the floor of the House, and they're basically saying, you're right, we got to do this. And so there's many things we got to do. And one of the things we got to do from last year, we had something passed in the National Defense Authorization Act called the continuity of operations. And the administration is mandated by that bill to come up with a plan to ensure there's continuity of operations when there's cyber attacks and to critical infrastructure. And we have to understand it's a threat that if we don't deal with it effectively, could metastasize, and we need to really prioritize cybersecurity going forward.
And lastly, if I might, as you just described, this is going to require legislation to deal with that. And what would you say to kind of offer some optimism to Americans who are saying, look, there's dissension just within the Republican ranks. Everybody can talk about bipartisanship, but are we ever going to see anyone reaching across the aisle at this point? Because it seems like there's so much division.
Well, I can tell you what, bipartisanship is the norm on Homeland Security Committee. Benny Thompson and I have a lot of different views on a lot of different things, but we both love our country like everyone else in Congress, and that transcends everything we do in Homeland Security. That's why Benny and I are together writing the January 6th bill, and Benny and I are together going to attack these cybersecurity issues. And the administration is going to pay attention to it, and everyone else will, because I know we have to going forward. It's a quintessential bipartisan area, keeping our country safe.
Congressman John Katko, so appreciate your time coming on the show.
Happy to do it. Come back anytime.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.